Yo, I'm Jack, and this is
Tim.
and we are Diplomacy, and we're hanging out with Rob on Front Row Live. Tune in.
Let's talk about this brand new project and like how this kind of came about, because I know there's like a long story behind it, and you guys kind of lived your own lives before you guys came together and started doing it. So like, let's talk about this project.
Yeah. Well, Tim and I grew up together in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and we both went off to pursue different things creatively, but we found ourselves in Los Angeles together. I was crashing on Tim's couch and drinking all his whiskey and eating all his food. And it took us a couple years, though, of us both being out here to, finally decide to do something collaboratively. And it took Tim kind of pushing me in that direction. I'd always wanted to do something musically, but was dragging my feet a little bit. And Tim sort of, sat me down and was like, let's fucking do this. And so since then, it's been sort of like, full steam ahead.
Well, Jack always asked me when he was going to be a rock star, and I was like, "Well, if you want to be a rock star, you gotta you gotta make music." So I don't know what to. I can't help you. No, it was one of those things where we had joked about it for a long time, just because we were two Michigan boys out in LA, and we're like, what are the chances? And then one day we're like, no, let's like actually do this. And then we got in the studio and we started working together, and it took us a few months, like maybe like a year, to like sort of really find our groove and find our rhythm creatively. But then once we sort of clicked, it just all kind of came together.
Did you guys always have like a specific sound in mind, or is that what you guys were also kind of trying to figure out as well?
Yeah, I mean, not initially. I mean, we definitely were sort of drawing inspiration from bands and musicians that we grew up listening to, and like I remember like we would go see like Red Hot Chili Peppers play in Detroit whenever they came through Michigan, or growing up listening to Nirvana, and then obviously as we got older and our influences changed, evolved, the first time we went to Coachella was together in GA, and like we saw all these different groups, and I remember seeing Flume for the first time, and I turned to Tim and I was like, who the fuck is this? And he was like, oh bro, listen, this is church. Yeah. And so it was kind of, all these different influences coming together that when we first started recording, given Tim's experience in his career, I think we both thought that we were going to maybe be making more of an electronic project together, a duo, but then that sort of evolved to incorporate more of these like rock and pop rock type outfits that we grew up listening to and inspired by.
Now, when you guys started collaborating in the studio, like, was it easy to kind of figure out, okay, like, I'm good at doing this, like the sounds, I'm good at doing like the vocals, or is that something that you guys were having a challenge kind of figuring out?
No, the short answer, no, that was not easy. I think anytime you're working with someone new creatively, you got to kind of figure out sort of what makes each other tick. And I think actually knowing each other so well, it probably hurt more than it helped at the beginning. Yeah. We're both very honest with each other, but just, as one example, it's, I think in a very sort of like I'm formally trained in music, and like I think very technically. Right. And Jack is an amazing musician, but he doesn't really have the formal training. So when I would, sort of talk about how we wanted the vocal, or like sort of what we wanted to do with the song, I would like speak in sort of musical language, and it just like it wouldn't go through. Yeah. And then it would be like, and not to make this all about him, but it was like for me too. It's like I don't understand why you don't understand, right. But then, that was frustrating at the beginning. But then as we worked together more, I think one time, like as a joke, because he's an actor, obviously, I was like, dude, just act it. And I was like, oh. Fucking crushed it. And I was like, wait, that worked? And he was like, yeah. Like, what do you mean? Like, of course it worked. Yeah. And I was like, oh. And then so from then on, I was like, instead of sort of like being like, this is, sing it like this, or, do a slur from this note to this note, I'm just like, dude, just like imagine you're in a field. Yeah. You're walking
through the rain.
You're walking through Central Park. It's snowing.
And I'm like,
there's mud, there's muddy snow on the ground. Like you're on your last cigarette, and then it was just like it just happened, and I was like, wow, like, and for me that was it's very different than how I would approach it, but that was one of the exciting things about it, where it's like, finding the common language that you can use, and sort of a completely different approach to making music than what I had been used to.
You kind of led to my next question, because it's like, you also do, obviously you do storytelling. So like, how do you kind of bring your storytelling as an actor to like the music world? Like, how does that really happen for you?
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of what Tim alluded to earlier when we were trying to figure out our sound at first. It was, we were kind of approaching it as like, okay, we're going to sit down and write a song. Yeah. And I obviously had no experience doing that, so I mean, it was just a fucking disaster. But Tim knows that I have a horrific memory, and I have this very real fear that I'm just going to forget everything as I get older. And like dementia runs in my family, and it's this very visceral feeling. And so I keep pretty detailed journals, diaries of like, events, people, whatever. Right. And so Tim asked if he could like kind of, leaf through one of my diaries, which, ooh boy. Yeah, I know, that's real friendship right there. But he read through it, and he he was like, oh, this is like, it's just prose storytelling. Like this is like the perfect source material for songwriting, which had never occurred to me, obviously, because I was just fucking writing out shit to remember it, and that sort of then became a theme, like the fallibility of memory, and like the stories we tell ourselves, and how we fool ourselves to think one thing when in reality something very different occurred. And that became sort of like the songwriting sort of cornerstone for us, and where we drew from, and how we collaboratively would sit down, and instead of like trying to tackle the big feat of writing a song, we just like found a story that we liked and could both connect to, and then started picking that apart and building something from it. So yeah, I think that's sort of the way I approached it. But even now, like as we've been doing this a little bit longer, when I try and sit down and like write a song, it's just not in my toolkit right now. So I think that for now, this is what works, and
Now, did your journal kind of lead to this debut single, Silver Lake Queen? Is that where the idea kind of came from, or is that something else that you guys worked on?
Yeah, it was one of the entries in there, and I read it, and I was like, Jack, like, this cannot be real. Like, he told this story about this woman, and Jack has a tendency to exaggerate, and
he's an actor. He's an actor.
Yeah. And it's this. I mean, the diary has like this incredible storytelling to it, and so naturally I was like, okay, this is like bullshit. I was gonna say heightened, but and then we were just out, and I think we were just having a drink one afternoon in Silver Lake, and we ran into her. And
she walked in, and I was like, that's her. I was like, that's Silver Lake Queen. Like, okay. Tim kind of rolled his eyes. Yeah.
I was like, okay. And then I was watching, and like, just like hanging out, being near her, watching how she was interacting with everyone at the bar. She was like literally holding court. It was the most insane thing I'd ever seen. It was like people were like people were basically going up and like offering tribute to her, and I was like, and like we hung out with her and talked to her, and then I walked away. I was like, yeah, like that is absolutely true. Like everything that you wrote is absolutely true, and we have to write a song about it. Like this is the sort of like, if she was a character in a TV show, I'd be like, I don't buy it. And so like that was one of the, I was really excited about it because it was one of those moments where, it was based on the diary entry, but it was one of our sort of the connected experiences that we had. And so it just felt like a really natural sort of like, let's write a song out of this. Yeah. So
why did you guys feel that was like the right track to kind of like introduce the world to?
Yeah, I mean, that was something, as we do this, I'm like leaning heavily on Tim's experience and his expertise. And we sort of disagreed about it at first. Not sort of, we totally disagreed about it. I don't know why I'm fucking polishing the edges on that one. But yeah, we disagreed, and I was like, no, we have to go with this other song. But then, you know, when he like sat down and was like, no, man, like this is it. This is like this like it's just the energy of the band. It's this percussive, like upbeat, like in your face sort of, you know, rock anthem that has a bit of an edge and attitude, and you know that's sort of what we're trying to do. So that made a lot of sense to me. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but
No, it had the attitude and sort of the like that little bit of like fuck you, like this is us, and I think it was very important for us to come out hot out of the gates. And some of the other stuff's a little more vibey, but this was like the, you know, hey, this is who we are.
Right. So, you know, when you guys were in the studio recording this, like what kind of challenges did you guys face in order to make this song happen?
I think we recorded your vocal like 12 times.
Yeah, that's true for sure. At least 12 times. I would like save. I still do this, but I would save every, you know, recording session we did onto like the note section of my iPhone and just run that shit as I was like driving to set every day. Because there was a bit of a learning curve for me at first, especially. And like, you know, kind of what Tim was talking about earlier, but like honing in on my vocal style, and how, you know, it was also really hard for me too. And like we had to work on this together where, you know, Tim is used to like working with fucking trained professional musicians who can go off of just like, you know, a drum beat and like the most bare minimum instrumentation on anything. They don't need to hear it, right? But I didn't understand the vibe or, you know, what the song was going to sound like. So Tim would like build it out a little bit more so that I could be like, okay, that's the attitude, like that's what we're going for. Right. So that took a little bit of finessing for sure. And then, you know, just like little things where we would kind of go back and forth about like one word in a lyric, right? Where kind of what Tim was saying earlier, where I think like that's when our like deep friendship sometimes gets in the way of stuff, where because we can be so brutal with one another, like we can get kind of savage about like a one word difference in a line. And you know, oftentimes it would end up where I'm just like, all right, you know what, fuck it, I don't care, I'm gonna go grab a beer, and then I would go and storm out, and
You had a lot of beers.
so many beers. And then oftentimes Tim would be like, I need 5 minutes. I'm like, do you need 5 minutes, or are you just getting me out of the studio, you piece of shit? But I don't know. He's like hitting buttons, so apparently he needs 5 minutes. I don't know.
Now you mentioned you would kind of like hear this as you would go to set. So, you know, how challenging is that already for you? You're having a hard time like kind of like being at his level as far as like the instrumentation and the recording goes, but like you also have to memorize lines for whatever else you're shooting. So like how do you kind of balance the two without actually mixing them in?
I mean, they're just really different parts of my brain creatively, I think. And, you know, the show is like my 9 to 5, you know, it's my job. Right. So like it's been on for 6 years, and I think that I've like really been fortunate to go to that job every single day, and it's just like a skin that I sort of slip on, right? And so getting into character, memorizing lines, all of that stuff comes so second nature to me now, whereas this is like just so exciting and different and new. Right. So, you know, they're different. They just like tickle itches a little differently. But it's been cool too, like being able to sort of bring this diplomacy into work. And like, you know, as we were working out demos, I would play it in the makeup trailer as everyone's getting ready to go to set for the day, and everyone's like jamming out to it. They're like, oh shit, you do this also?
Gathering those fans.
Yeah. I'm like, let's go, guys. Let's go, motherfuckers. Subscribe.
Meanwhile, I'm like, dude, stop fucking playing demos. It's not ready.
Yeah. Tim will get so fucking big. I'd be like sending it to my mom. I'm like, Mom, listen. He's like, because then our moms are friends. Yeah. So then his mom would hear it, and like she'd be like hounding Tim about it. She's like, Jack's mom's getting demos. Why am I not getting demos?
I mean, like, I hate sending demos out. I'm like, it's not ready. You can't hear it yet. And Jack, meanwhile, he's like playing it on set. Like everyone's heard it already. Like,
so now that you guys debuted your single, you know, what is next for you guys? Are you guys gonna try and do the singles? Because a lot of artists are doing it today, where it's like releasing singles, promoting those singles for a while while they're working on other stuff or even touring. Like, what is the plan for this band?
So we have an EP done. We have, yeah, well, we've been working on it for a while. So we have an EP done. We shot 2 music videos. One of them, Silver Lake Queen, which is out now. We have another music video, Locked and Loaded, coming early next year, and then we're going on tour. So it's a very exciting time. We're we're starting to rehearse and get all our live stuff together, and like working on the album too. So yeah, just a lot happening.
Well, congratulations with finally making this project happen. You guys be sure to check out Diplomacy. Debut single's out now, Silver Lake Queen, and thanks for watching on Front Row Live.